It's very fast acting. Within 45 seconds, you can be absorbing like 50% of that sodium, boom, right into
Wow.
your bloodstream without having to have it pass through your gut like you would with a drink or a powder. And you can certainly chew them and, take water and you'll still get the electrolyte replenishment. But the idea is that you chew them and they absorb through the lining of your mouth, and they're very low in sugar. So they're kind of like a little treat still.
Did you know the average woman spends 7 years of her life dealing with period pain? Wave By believes it's time to get those years back. Founded by an OBGYN, Wave By is the first science-backed solution that regulates menstrual cycle and reduces period pain before it even starts. Wave By has 3 products. By Irregularity from Wave By is designed to help your cycle find its rhythm again. Packed with clinically studied nutrients like inositol, magnesium, and chasteberry, By Irregularity supports healthy ovulation, hormone balance, and smoother, more predictable cycles without prescription or hormones. By Cramps and By Bad Cramps are the proactive premenstrual products that target the prostaglandin messengers that cause cramps and heavy bleeding, so your life doesn't have to stop every month. Think of it as the new Midol, backed by science, built by women, and designed to keep you feeling like yourself. Join the thousands who have already said it's absolutely life-changing, including myself. I've been taking this product every day for nearly 6 months. I take By Irregularity and By Cramps, and it has absolutely reduced my cramping and regulated my cycle. It is super predictable. So head to waveby.co and use the code Lindsey Cortes for 10% off. Say bye to irregular or painful cycles and hi to your true rhythm. Because when your cycle's in sync, everything else just flows. Lindsey Cortes for 10% off your Wave By purchase. Hi, fans, listeners. Welcome back to another episode of the Female Athlete Nutrition Podcast. I am your host, Lindsey Cortes, registered dietitian, sports dietitian. Our guest today is Jess Cerra. She is a multifaceted professional whose career spans elite athletics, entrepreneurship, and community advocacy. She currently serves as the Vice President of Product and Community Development at Elite Active Nutrition, where she leads innovation for brands such as Bonk Breaker, Salt Stick, and Vitasium. Sarah's athletic journey began with triathlons, where she quickly excelled, becoming the Xterra Amateur National Champion in 2011 and ranked 6th in the professional women's division by 2011. Transitioning to professional road cycling in 2015, she competed for UCI Continental teams, including 2016, now known as 2024, and Hagen's Berman Superman. Her notable achievements include winning the sprint classification and stage 4 at the 2018 Redlands Bicycle Classic. Beyond her athletic pursuits, Sarah is the founder of JoJ Bar, a gluten-free real food energy bar designed for endurance athletes, which became part of the Elite Active Nutrition portfolio in 2021. She also co-founded The Last Best Ride, a gravel cycling event in her hometown of Whitefish, Montana, which allocates its proceeds to scholarships for women pursuing post-secondary education. So obviously, Jess has that personal athletic background. She's got her hands in the sports nutrition and food development world, and we're really excited to have her on as a guest. Jess, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, so obviously we can see how you're reading off your bio, how you're an athlete. We need fuel to perform. Now you're working in kind of a sports nutrition industry, but I'd love to know kind of where this passion stemmed from for you, a little more maybe about your background or like your degrees even, which I think are related as well, that led you not just into profession that has to do with athletics, but also like the product development side, right? Like
Right.
founding your own bar, the food production side of things.
Yeah. So I feel like my story is a little bit unique because I definitely focused on the education piece before I became an athlete. And I think in a lot of circumstances, athletes gravitate towards educating themselves and then potentially pursue a degree in exercise physiology or nutrition
Very true.
to sort of
Mhm.
support their, athletic endeavors. But I grew up in Whitefish, Montana, as you mentioned, and had a very humble beginning growing up. We didn't have a lot of financial resources, but I was in an area where everyone lives to be outside and people want to live there to ski and bike and recreate. And so I was always around outdoor activity. And I
Mm.
definitely felt like I gravitated towards wanting to do it my whole life, but the resources really weren't lining up. And I think that's why I pursued exercise physiology in both undergrad and grad school. So I went to the University of Montana for undergrad and actually was a third author on a paper in undergrad, which, if you know scientific research, that's a pretty big deal. And the
Yeah.
study that we were doing was looking at carbohydrate feedings in forest firefighters. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, so way, way back, we're talking, I mean, I was an undergrad in 2000 to 2004. So we were feeding firefighters 90-gram carbohydrate feedings. So
Yeah.
I was getting exposed to that side of performance before I even became an athlete. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was
Well, and
intriguing.
sorry to interrupt you, but I love bringing that up, just remembering that fueling the body in this term athlete can look so many different things.
Right,
Like we have our traditional sports, softball, baseball, track and field. We have our outdoor adventure kind of, you grew up just like that athletics being outdoors. And then we have these more like job related, like forest firefighters. That's
right,
insane. Police officers, more tactical positions that can be very demanding on the body. And I'm not from that area, but I've
right.
heard stories that, yeah, fighting these fires can be hours, days, weeks in extreme environments, limited food,
Exactly.
so that's so fascinating. Thank you for sharing that.
So, and it really, like, it opened my eyes to, what you're saying is that the term athlete, it really applies to, like, a lot of different people. And
Mhm.
I wanted to continue to dig into this research, and what I really liked was understanding fueling and hydration, and I ended up going to San Diego State University for grad school because I was attracted to the fact that they had an environmental chamber in their exercise physiology lab. And I knew that they were doing research with athletes looking at sweat loss and
Mm.
a bunch of different factors. And so I got into this program down at San Diego State University and I started grad school in 2005. And that's how I ended up finding cycling through grad school because we're performing a study on elite male cyclists looking at sweat loss and particularly calcium loss through sweat, looking at calcium reabsorption and fueling, and how a lot of young cyclists were already having low bone density. So
Mm.
I became involved in this study and ended up doing a VO2 max test in the lab on the lab bike in my tennis shoes. And my VO2 max, which is basically what VO2 max is, it's your oxygen carrying capacity, and it's a really good signal of what your endurance capability is and
Mhm.
what your endurance threshold is. And mine was very high. It was at like an Olympic level. And
Oh, wow.
my professor, who is a cyclist, my mentor professor was like, "Oh my gosh, what the heck? How do you not even own a bike? Like, we have to fix this." And so that
And just curious, had you been, like, training? Like,
no,
obviously not cycling, but, like
no. I
no?
no, I mean, I loved running and I
Mhm.
loved going to the gym. And I think that, again, when I moved to San Diego, I was supporting myself. And so I got
Mhm.
a job at a gym and I was working at the school teaching undergraduate classes. And
Mhm.
everybody in Southern California had a bike. And
Yeah.
I don't know what it was about cycling, but it's like I knew I wanted to do it, but I had no idea what I needed or like how to get into it. It just feels so intimidating. And so I just kind of was tootling along at the gym and, hiking and running and just kind of feeling like a little bit of a fish out of water moving from Montana to California. So I was lucky that, I fell into the hands of some really amazing mentors, actually.
Yeah, and kinda pushed encouraged you saying, "Hey, you've got potential here, natural potential."
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and sorry if I'm cut you off, but like, so then your teacher says, you've got great VO2 max. You got to get a bike. And is that just kind of how it happened? Like a lot of people cycled in that area. You found some mentors and you started training and you got into the sport.
Yeah, she was on a mountain bike team and she gave me one of her bikes. I think I bought it for $1,000 and I paid it off over the course of 2 years to her, and
Yeah.
I would go out with their team and had no clue about mountain biking. I mean, I didn't know anything about what to wear, and they were giving me cycling
Yeah.
kits, and I was wearing, like, my underwear under the cycling kits, and they had to tell me, like, "Oh, you don't have to wear underwear, like, that's what your chamois are for."
Yeah.
Like, all the
Yeah.
things that everyone learns that whole, like, rite of passage. But when it came to the endurance part, or specifically climbing, I would, like, blow everyone's doors off.
You had that.
So,
Yeah. You had
yeah,
that natural talent
that's
there
a natural
too.
talent.
Yeah.
I just need
Yeah.
to rein in all the other things, and
Mhm.
I can see how getting into sport, whether it's cycling or running or whatever it is, it can be really intimidating, and so
Yeah.
I think that's why people gravitate towards, like, run clubs and other things where it feels very inclusive and you can kind of find someone that meets you where you are, like, if you're in a larger group. So,
Yeah. I mean, I think that every sport has that learning curve where it's helpful to have people kind of show you the ropes. But there are certain sports where like the equipment and the gear is really necessary.
yeah.
That's where that barrier to entry, so to say. Like I love the idea of cycling too, but I don't have a bike, right? And it's a big financial investment. Oh, hockey's
Right.
cool, but I don't have skates. I have to
Right.
pay for ice time on the rink. Like, so there, versus there are some other sports like soccer that are a bit more accessible or running a bit more accessible. Even swimming, I might say, even a bit more accessible. But I would say that if you have an interest, just, walk into the bike shop, start asking questions because
Yeah.
people can help point you in the right direction. And even if your first few rides or your first year, you look back years later and you're like, wow, I had no clue what I was doing, but you learned, you figured
Yeah,
it
you
out.
learn.
So,
And
yeah,
if
yeah,
you like, just a note to anyone that is curious, that's super great advice. And I think because of gravel cycling specifically, it's kind of blended the world of elite and, people that just want to ride for the joy of it together. And I think
yeah.
almost every bike shop and every location that you can find, there's probably a group of people that you can get introduced to, or a clinic, or, something going on. So don't be shy about it because there's other people that need to meet you also.
Yeah. Oh, I love that advice too. Yeah. Yeah. You bring value to these people as well.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So,
Amazing. So yeah, very interesting, right? Yeah, your education kind of then led you to athletics and like you said, lots of people tend to be the reverse, but there's no right or wrong way.
no.
No, not at all. And also interesting too that like the research or yeah, that you were involved in like with the carbohydrates of the forest firefighters and then the calcium and electrolytes and sweat loss is really also is like lines up with what you do now professionally. One of the companies we'll get into, that's owned by Elite Active Nutrition is Salt Stick, which is all electrolytes. And we're going to really focus our conversation on that quite a bit today. But just one more question about your personal athletic journey. So even though that kind of professional competition was just a handful of years ago, I would imagine I hopped on your Instagram. You're still quite active in the sport now. You're still participating.
Yes. My
Yeah.
husband is a professional cyclist, and I joke when people ask me what I'm training for, it's just to be able to ride on his wheel. Just so we can spend time together. But
Yeah.
I do still, I have the competitive spirit. I'm 43 now. So to me, like, I just want to stay on top of my game as long as I can. But
Yeah.
definitely, I'm a little more balanced than I was when I was racing, which is necessary when you're pursuing a professional sport. I think balance is not possible all the time. So, yeah, I love where I am now, and we spend the winters down in California where my husband trains until he goes to Europe. And so I get to stay pretty fit through the winter too on the bike.
Yeah, yeah. Amazing. So a whole cycling family. So I want to dive into kind of I was going to say the meat and potatoes of this conversation, such a nutrition pun.
And
But we really wanted to dive into the conversation of electrolytes. And ultimately, let's just do a quick overview of, sorry, I'm pulling up your title again, the Vice President of Product and Community Development at Elite Active Nutrition. And Elite Active Nutrition is a company that also kind of owns a few other companies. So do you want to share a bit about Elite Active Nutrition and their mission?
I'll try to give you the elevator pitch if we were doing 200 floors in the elevator because it's a lot to include. You mentioned I had founded a real food bar called Joe J. Part of that came from when I was pursuing professional cycling, needing to have a job at the same time, which a lot of women do. And I started my own private chef company and catering company. And through that and through the cycling and triathlon community, I created this bar called Joe J Bar. It grew nationally when we were accepted into REI. And that was like a pivot
Oh,
point.
wow. Yeah, that's a big deal.
Like, okay, so now we either need to do a fundraising round and kind of change how our growth trajectory looks, or potentially consider an acquisition. And I had an offer on the table at the time from Elite Active Nutrition, and it lined up with all of my goals. And so I took that offer. And JoJ was acquired. Elite originally started to become a platform of sports nutrition brands. So they had already acquired Salt Stick when I joined, and then we acquired Bonk Breaker and also Vitasium, which is Salt Stick's sister brand. So we had this nice little platform of brands, and we were looking at acquiring a couple other brands. And this was sort of like post COVID, like immediate post COVID, as the landscape of sports nutrition really started to change. And what we decided was that we wanted to focus everything into the Salt Stick brand, with hydration and electrolytes kind of leading the way for us. And knowing that sometimes in business, the best thing to do and the hardest thing to do is to kind of say no to one thing and to focus on what makes sense. And so we made some tough decisions. We sunsetted the Joe J brand and the Bonk Breaker brand, but we pulled in the gummies from the Bonk Breaker brand into Salt Stick. So if you go to find us now, everything is Salt Stick and then the sister brand Vitasium. And Salt Stick is primarily an electrolyte replenishment brand. We focus on waterless electrolyte replenishment. And so I
Yeah.
can talk you through some of our products, and I can also mention some of them, as they pertain to some of the questions we're going to get into with sweat. Vitasium is very similar to Salt Stick, but it's a medical foods brand targeted for folks with chronic illnesses where you need electrolytes to function. So things like POTS, dysautonomia, supporting symptoms with cystic fibrosis and illnesses like that. So
Yeah.
all of that is
And
there.
though we're not going to focus on Vitasium, we're going to focus on Salt Stick, kind of the athletic sports nutrition brand. I think it's still important to bring it up because some athletes can have coexisting conditions. I've heard of many athletes who are struggling with POTS. And, so this is something that, okay, maybe, talk to your doctors when we're dealing with a chronic health or medical condition, but there could be,
Right.
Even for athletes, there could be space where, oh, this other brand might be interesting as well.
Especially if
But
you're having long
oh,
COVID symptoms. Just to build on that, I think Salt Stick has created a lot of awareness about what POTS is. And it's actually kind of transforming the medical world because there were some unknowns with POTS and dysautonomia, and it's becoming more of a commonly diagnosed condition now.
since we're talking about it, should we maybe define POTS? I'm trying to remember what the letters even stand for, but I know it's an electrolyte
Yeah,
imbalance.
it's an electrolyte imbalance. And basically, I don't want to say exactly like what symptoms people would be having because you should definitely talk to your doctor. But it's when you have an electrolyte imbalance and that changes your blood pressure specifically, and you
Yeah.
need a lot of sodium to kind of counteract that. So you're often dizzy, you're often like you take a hot bath and you feel dizzy when you're getting up. It would be almost interesting for you to do an entire episode with,
On that, yeah.
yeah, with Lauren, who's our brand director, but it's postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, so your heart rate, it goes tachycardia super high,
Yeah.
orthostatic, showing, like, our blood pressure issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so like you said, we could do a whole episode on that, but I just wanted to bring that up, kind of just awareness that, oh, yeah, salt sticks, like the performance piece, but there are plenty of athletes that have ongoing other conditions and are still athletes, right? So we can look into Vitasium for that, and great idea to have another episode on
Yeah.
that. So, okay, so salt stick. Okay, let's back up. So salt sticks, electrolyte company, but let's first kind of cover some basics. Like, we lose electrolytes in our sweat.
Yes.
Everybody sweats,
Yeah.
athletes sweat more. Everybody has their own unique sweat rate. So there are light sweaters, there are heavy sweaters. And then your electrolyte composition of your sweat varies too. So there are people who are very salty sweaters and people who maybe don't sweat out as much salt. Like, we all sweat out salt, and
Yes.
out of the electrolytes that we lose in our sweat, we lose I keep saying salt, but the correct mineral term would be sodium. Sodium chloride is
Right.
salt, but most of our sweat, out of the electrolytes that we lose, the majority of it is the sodium, but we do lose chloride, we
Yes.
do lose magnesium, we do lose calcium. So there are other minerals in our sweat as well. And you can share more about this, but I think this is what's interesting when we talk about electrolytes. Like, as a sports dietitian, I do often recommend sports drinks because they also have, like, the carbohydrate in there, so not to be specific about brand names, but just some obvious, like Gatorade, Powerade. They've got sodium and they also have carbohydrate. So we're hydrating, we get sodium and we get carbohydrates to fuel. But truthfully, when you look at how much sodium is in these beverages, it might not be enough to replenish sweat losses for high performing athletes or salty sweaters or heavy sweaters, endurance sports, those in the heat and humidity. So it's a good start, I feel. And I'm also coming from the fueling standpoint of, hey, there's carbs in there. But I think a product like Salt Stick, super important because and you're gonna get into this, like, kind of mimicking just these more appropriate sodium levels or electrolyte levels that athletes are really sweating out. And yeah, there's no carbs in there, but you can get carbs from other sources and fuel and things like that, right?
Right.
So I'd love to hear what makes the Salt Stick electrolyte products unique or different from some other things, such as what I just mentioned, your sports drinks or your electrolyte powders, other ones that are on the market.
Well, you're touching on exactly what our shtick is, which is the ratio of electrolytes you lose through your sweat. And Salt Stick was founded by a chemist and an ultra runner and Ironman triathlete. So he had, both the educational background and the practical background of being an ultra endurance athlete.
Mhm.
And when he founded Salt Stick, this was the issue that he wanted to address, is that you do lose a specific ratio of electrolytes through your sweat, and mirroring the replenishment of that ratio is going to be the most effective for rehydration. So the ratio of electrolytes in the Salt Stick products, of sodium to potassium to calcium and magnesium, mirror that ratio. And it's those specific electrolytes that are in the products for that reason. And then we do
Mm.
have the energy gummies that bring the sugar and the carbs. So,
Yeah, and that is a relatively new product,
yes,
right? It was, like,
I
kinda since Bonk Breaker was sunsetted. Oh, nice.
yeah, this is
Yeah.
one of our sour gummies. One of the sours that I worked on, some of the regular that I worked on, guava. So, they're delicious. They're, like, really healthy candy. I kinda hate that term, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I know well, it's
Yeah.
funny because I don't when you showed the package, like, my mouth watered a little bit. I was like, "Ooh, that looks
Oh,
good."
this is good
And
brand, yay.
yeah, and it's funny though because I'm not in a phase of my life where I'm needing products like that.
Yeah.
I have yeah,
Yeah.
young kids and lots going
Right,
on in my
right.
life right now, and I haven't been training endurance like I did, a couple of years ago, and sometimes I miss, like, I could really go for some, like, sports gels and
Yeah,
chews,
right?
like, as weird as
I
that
know.
sounds, but
I
I'm like,
know.
I enjoy eating them on my runs or on my long workouts, like, it was something to look forward to, they could be so tasty.
Especially when they are tasty, and I think that that's so important. I said I was gonna send you a care package. These little fast chews are
Yeah,
our main product that I wanna focus on with Salt Stick, because when you ask what's different about the brand, we have capsules, like your
yeah,
traditional capsule that you can swallow, but these are like almost like a sweet tart. They're a tablet. You chew them,
mm,
and they absorb through the lining of your mouth. So, it's very fast acting. Within 45 seconds, you can be absorbing like 50% of that sodium, boom, right into
wow.
your bloodstream without having to have it pass through your gut like you would with a drink or a powder. And you can certainly chew them and, take water, and you'll still get the electrolyte replenishment. But the idea is that you chew them and they absorb through the lining of your mouth, and they're very low in sugar. So they're kind of like a little treat still.
And it goes so yeah, with bypassing the GI. So I'm just curious so a lot of endurance athletes have GI issues while they're during during their training and competitions, and a lot of that stems from electrolyte imbalances.
Yep.
And I'm just curious how absorbing the electrolytes kind of orally or like it absorbing through your saliva versus absorbing through the GI system, does that make a difference in, like, having GI disturbances, having to go to the bathroom?
Well, one thing, and we can touch on this if you want, if you are having GI disturbances, that could be a time to actually look into doing a sweat test, which I know we are going to dive into. Because if something's just off, whether cramping or GI issues, you might be one of those people that, you are a heavy sweater. It would be good to start to understand your sweat rate, your fluid loss, because with sweat, I mean, I think most people know this, it's mostly water. It's like 99% water. But then
Yeah,
that last 1% of the electrolytes is so critical to a lot of things, from, like cramping to like the muscle contraction to mental fog to, all of the things that are going on. And then also with your gut shutting down, that also has to do with muscle contraction and potentially either too much water being directed to your gut or not enough water. There, there's a whole world of things that could be going on. But yeah, I think that would be, a good time for a sweat test. With these chewable products, the nice thing is if you get yourself in a scenario in an event where, and like we've all been there, where it's just like you cannot onboard anything, at the very least, you can be onboarding the electrolytes, because you don't have to take any fluids. So you're not going to be upsetting your gut. These will absorb through the lining of your mouth. And
yeah,
I think that that's a really important key, is that if you can at least get the electrolytes in, you're doing something versus nothing.
yeah, yeah, and so there's there's dehydration,
Mhm.
and then there's also, like, hyponatremia,
Yeah.
which is low sodium, and
Yep.
I don't know if there's another word for this, but, like, also just an imbalance in the other electrolytes, because hyponatremia means low sodium, but
Yeah.
we've already mentioned the importance of the magnesium, the calcium, the chloride. So maybe this would be nice to kind of review, like, do the 2 usually go together, or, like, can we be well hydrated and still have low sodium? Like, what are the chances of that? What should endurance athletes be more are we more concerned about dehydration? Are we more concerned about hyponatremia?
Yeah.
They're both important.
Yeah, they're both important, and and they both kind of look the same, like dehydration or low
Yeah.
sodium. It often feels like headache, nausea, cramps, mental fog before it's ever like super dramatic and can turn into something that's, with hyponatremia, you can go to the side of like needing medical care or heat stroke or, anything like that. Vomiting, swelling of your hands and your feet, passing out, red skin, or like even goosebumps. Those are all those types of things. But I think you definitely need to replace your fluids. and the electrolytes. And I don't know that it's always possible to get it exactly right during activity. If you focus on onboarding electrolytes through capsules, through chewable tablets, maybe through some of your carbohydrate products like these gummies do have electrolytes, a lot of gels do. And then however you figure out if you weigh yourself before and after, or you're just really good at bringing yourself back to baseline, continuing to rehydrate after exercise, and also continuing to bring in the electrolytes, especially if you've underdone it. So you don't get in a scenario where, you aren't recovering, aren't sleeping, are having, like muscle cramps and leg cramps in the middle of the night. So sometimes that can be a sign, that you're not bringing in enough electrolytes and you're not doing the recovery appropriately.
Fans, I'm pausing the conversation again to check in on you. Are you concerned that you have REDS? That's relative energy deficiency in sport. It's a syndrome of not ideal health consequences and performance consequences that all stem from the idea that you're not fueling optimally or fueling enough for your sport needs. I've become an expert in this over the years because, unfortunately, a lot of female athletes struggle with this. We have research that shows sometimes up to 90% of female athletes might be suffering from at least one of the side effects of REDS. Other research says that up to 45% of female athletes are struggling with disordered eating. These are big statistical numbers, and I don't like it. I'm here to help you become fierce, fit, and fueled. So first and foremost, head to lindseycortes.com/REDS to learn more about REDS, listen to past podcast episodes, and take our free REDS quiz to see if this might be a concern for you. From there, I've got 3 ways to help you. 1, download the REDS Recovery Guide and start taking action right away. 2, join our REDS Recovery membership. For a very affordable $15 a month, you will have access to me as a sports dietitian to educate and empower you to fuel better. We meet once a week for live calls, Q&A. You have access to the recordings if you can't join live, and a community group chat to support, encourage, and motivate you along the way to fuel fiercely. Last, spots are limited for one-on-one help, but I can help you personally through one-on-one coaching, be it my Fast Track program, the Female Athlete System of Transformation, or perhaps Fuel School, depending on your age. All of that is on my website, lindseycortes.com. But because one-on-one spots are limited, I really want to encourage you to join the REDS Recovery membership. We live in a world where it's very easy to just pop online, read an article, listen to a podcast, and I think we do a decent job at getting information out there, but we all need someone to talk to and really ask those personal questions, and also be open and honest in a community that's going to support you in your fueling needs and goals. And that's exactly what this membership is. So only $15 a month. We meet once a week, and you will be provided with so much education and empowerment and support. I know you won't regret joining. Head to lindseycortes.com/REDS, and there you will see the REDS Recovery membership that you can join, and join us this week. It's time for you to be fierce, fit, and fueled. So I want to break this down into practical terms for our listeners. But before we do that, we've mentioned sweat testing and you mentioned weighing yourself. So I do think this is important if I would say endurance athletes or people who can just tell they're sweating a ton, people who are having these symptoms that are I'm just, I feel like I'm fueling right, and yet I'm having poor recovery. People who live in hot environments, really humid environments,
Yep.
it might be worth doing these sweat rate testings. And one that I'm super comfortable with is the method of weighing yourself before and after your exercise. And there is a trick to this. It's not as simple as just weigh yourself. It's best to do it without clothes on, because if you're not just because of the weight, but after a workout, a run or a ride, your clothes are going to hold the sweat in. And what you're trying to see is how much weight did you lose, because we didn't burn fat and calories and muscle tissue during this 2-hour ride. What you did was you lost water weight.
Exactly.
You lost sweat rate. And so we can see if I lost 2 pounds, it's 16 ounces per pound of body weight. So if you lost 2 pounds, that's 32 ounces of fluid that you lost in your sweat. And then I typically, through research, I assume a minimum of 500 milligrams of sodium lost per liter of sweat, but that's highly variable.
It is.
And so do you have any other more precise methods of sweat testing or knowing
Yeah.
like your sodium losses that you would recommend or electrolyte
Yeah.
losses?
So, I mean, like you mentioned, there's so many variables, how much you sweat, how salty your sweat is, how long and hot the activity is it humid? And you don't have to do a sweat test, but I like we're talking about it's very valuable. We always tell people and you would be shocked like at an expo like before an event, people are really underdoing it on electrolytes and they have no
Yeah.
idea if you actually start thinking about the practical usage of electrolytes during activity. Let's say you're doing a marathon and your goal is 5 hours, and you know that you're going to be losing, or you're going to want to replace a minimum of 500 milligrams of sodium per hour, which is like the base that we start with for people.
Okay.
And you think about practically, how am I going to get 500 milligrams of sodium per hour? It's a lot of nutrition. It's a lot of things on board. And then if
Yeah.
you're a saltier sweater or it's hot, it can be up to 1,000 milligrams. And if it's all of those things and you're really salty sweater and you're actually like a bigger person, it can be up to 2,000 milligrams an hour.
Yeah.
And so like you don't have to replace all of that, but you have to replace at least half or you're
So,
going to start to fall behind and
yeah.
you're going to start like that's not going to be good, especially over time. So I think
I love that you mentioned you don't need to replace all of it during, but like
right,
at least half is a good goal. And then we add more electrolytes in the recovery period because it does help your muscles recover and help you rehydrate in the post period as well. But yeah, that's where in these endurance events, it's like to get through it, you need to start replenishing electrolytes during.
yeah,
And sorry for the side note here, but I remember like in my training as a sports dietitian, there were a lot of textbooks that were like electrolytes aren't needed until recovery. But that might be in your traditional, 1 hour soccer game. And it's like, okay, that's fine to save it for
yeah.
after. Although I might argue at a high level of soccer,
No,
you
good.
should still do it
Finish
during
doing
because
it.
it doesn't
Yeah,
hurt to have it during. It
right,
doesn't hurt to have it during. But definitely for these endurance sports where we are going two,
right.
3 hours, no, you have to have them during. You cannot wait until the after
Yeah.
period.
And we're in a nutritional revolution. Like the knowledge is there, the products are there. Like you might as well just take advantage of it, dial it in, right?
Yeah.
We we laughed at there was an article published last year kind of dissing electrolyte products and talking about how you can get what you need through natural things. And one of the things that the author of this article mentioned was broccoli. And
That is like such a low
we were
sodium food.
like, first off,
It's the
yes.
dumbest thing I've
What?
ever
And
heard.
also, have you ever gone for a run and tried to eat broccoli?
Oh God. Was this like an active, like, athlete article?
It was
Because
in
this
an
is
active publication.
wow, yeah. Well, I will
So
agree that the electrolyte market has boomed like crazy
yes.
with a lot of products marketed towards performance that I feel like are not athletic performance. And there's a huge push for, like, the everyday person to consume tons of electrolytes, and for that, I will say, "Hey, we can get electrolytes through Whole Foods,"
Exactly.
and, like, we don't need to be pushing massive electrolytes for the everyday person, and I'm not trying to be rude when I say this, but for the gym goer, like, which is I'm g being honest, like, that's me right now. I'm just the, like, 30, 45 minutes, 5-day-a-week gym goer. Like, I don't need massive amounts of
Right.
electrolyte. I can get that through food and maybe the occasional electrolyte drink if it's summertime, but we're talking athletes, endurance
Yeah.
athletes. No, you're not gonna be eating broccoli
Exactly. Yeah.
on your run or even our salty foods that I'm like, "Oh, soy sauce, cheese, bread," like those salted pretzels. Those are cool things to think about during your daily diet, like in your post-workout recovery meal when you're having, rice and chicken, like throw some soy sauce on there because that's gonna
Totally.
help your
Yes.
daily electrolyte sodium intake. Like, yeah, that's cool, but during your workout and in the recovery period, you're gonna need something a lot more targeted.
Exactly. And this is such a great topic, one of my favorite topics because I think some people don't realize that the electrolytes in these drinks or like 1,000 milligrams of sodium in a stick pack, it's kind of irresponsible to ask everybody to be drinking that. It's
I think so
the
too.
same as the electrolytes that you can get through food. Like table salt is sodium chloride.
Yeah.
So it's not magic. There are some, types of sodium, like sodium citrate, that are a little bit more bioavailable that are incorporated into sports nutrition products. It doesn't really matter though. And one of the things that I love about the fast chews is that this is like one of our little sample packs, has 100
Yeah.
milligrams of sodium. 30
Mhm.
milligrams of potassium, 10 milligrams of calcium, and 6 milligrams of magnesium. So that's that ratio. The 3-to-1 of sodium to potassium is like a really important part of that ratio. Where if you
Mm.
are the gym goer and you're like, drop kids off, go to the gym, go to meetings, like hit, and like you have one water bottle, like a pack of these can actually like still help without totally overdoing it.
Yeah. Yes. Right. And so, sorry, taking this conversation full circle now, we're talking about like doing sweat rate testing because it's to understand how much sodium you're losing really helps you create the fueling rehydration electrolyte plan as well. Like you mentioned, let's say a 4 or 5 hour marathon. And if you need to be consuming 2,500 milligrams of sodium,
Right.
it's like you can look at, and again, I'm bringing up the big names, not for any particular I'm not trying to promote or diss, but, like, you look at 8 ounces of Gatorade, and it's like, "Oh, this isn't gonna get me there," right?
Right.
Now, you might still choose on your 4 or 5-hour run that, like, "Well, I'm gonna bring water with me, and I'm gonna bring an electrolyte drink just to switch up flavor and get that," but, yeah, like, if I'm counting up my electrolyte drink that I'm gonna sip on every, 8 minutes, oh, I'm only getting, 500 milligrams of sodium throughout this whole thing. So that's where Salt Stick is a unique product where it's not in a fluid, right? So
Right.
we can have that. Your original is a capsule.
Right. We small
Um,
sip with
yeah.
so yep,
So you swallow it down with water, and then you have these fast chews, like tablets.
yep,
And then the newer product too is where it does like the chews,
yep.
where it does have carbohydrate, but also some electrolytes in there.
Right.
So you can then start kind of calculating. And I do recommend, and feel free to disagree, but I typically tend to have people figure out their water hydration plan first,
Yes.
like, just to because I think that's we gotta stay on top of hydration, and also you're gonna feel thirsty. Sometimes we don't feel that we need the sodium, but you're gonna feel thirsty, so you're gonna be stimulated to drink, so
Yes.
go ahead and create your water hydration plan, and then you can figure out how much of those fluids are going to be an electrolyte drink if I want it to be, or a carbohydrate drink, and then what's the extra electrolytes that I
I
need,
mean,
and these products can
yeah.
be really, really helpful.
100%. When you had asked me like 3 top tips, one of mine was going to be don't wing it. And I have to say, like, professional athletes don't wing it.
Yeah.
And I really truly believe this. Yes, there's the genetic gift of being a professional athlete. I'm not going to deny it. But I think what really separates us is like the gift of time and just the ability to 100% focus on things like this and then the
Hmm.
resources. And so just to back up a little bit, with the sweat testing, if you are curious in doing that, a really low cost way to do that is with the Gatorade sweat patches.
Yeah, I tried those out myself. Yeah.
And I don't know if you had compared them to anything else. If you use those consistently and you're just comparing, like, let's say you are training for a race that's in heat and humidity and you're going to do Kona this year and you end up going to Kona for a month and you just kind of want to see what happens over that month and you're just using those Gatorade sweat patches. Like that's a great scenario or a great way just to get a baseline. And I believe that they have either fruit or vegetable juice in them, and that's how they do the chemical assay to
Yeah.
report out the electrolytes that you're losing, or specifically the chloride, if
Yeah.
I'm understanding how those work. I don't know, what was your experience with those? Because I haven't used.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was through my professional connections, like, trying to figure out a way to do, and I was doing virtual work, so I'm like, "What do I recommend to my clients to do their own sweat rate testing?" And this was the best option that is like self-user friendly.
Right.
You know, you don't have to go into a lab. It's like
Yeah.
just, buy it, it shows up in the mail, put it on yourself. And I used it 4 times with 4 similar workouts because I wanted to see, like, in this environment, is it going to be kind of, yeah, accurate among the test results among each other. So I found it to be helpful for sure. And they had a really convenient app too that just kind of reminded you what to hydrate.
Um,
Yeah.
that's interesting. I think I need to try to use the Gatorade patches just so I can be more informed when I'm talking about them, but I did wanna say that a couple of years ago, we did a fun experiment with the Nix biosensor, and
Mm,
that's a little bit more of an expensive product. Personally, am attracted to this brand because I met the founder, who's a female, and just is a genius, and I love supporting, smaller brands that are, female founded and owned, but her product is really unique, and we ended up using the biosensors. So they insert into your skin and
mm.
use an electrical activity little thing that's in there to communicate with the app. Smarter than what I can tell you here.
Almost like a continuous glucose monitor
Exactly.
does, except
Exactly.
for,
That
yeah,
for electrolytes and for your fluid loss. So it does both, which is
yeah,
really handy. And it connects to an app and you can plug in like I take salt stick and I take SIS and I take whatever you're taking and it like can tell you when to consume those things after you do the testing. So
yeah,
it's almost like on your watch when it's like eat or drink
yeah.
or if you're that type of person that needs those reminders. But anyways,
That sounds a lot more advanced
it
than the
is
Gatorade one
it
too,
is
because
way
another,
more
yeah,
advanced, and
yeah.
you pay for that service, but I think if you are having issues, if you're, expending a lot of time doing an
Professional
activity,
athlete, this is your
professional
career.
athlete, or yeah, or you just like you're an elite amateur athlete or you just love the science behind this.
Yeah,
We use these on 4 of our professional athletes, 1 triathlete, 1 runner, 2 runners, and 1 tennis player. All 4 of them discovered that they were losing way more electrolytes than they thought, and it was
yeah.
really interesting to kind of watch them go through this, and I did interviews with all 4 of them. They're way back on the Salt Stick Instagram if you're very curious and wanna dive in, but it was a fun little project.
Well, and another thing too is that as you become more trained, like, as you're, yeah, more trained, becoming a higher level athlete, you actually get more efficient at sweating, meaning that you sweat more because your body becomes more efficient at like cooling its internal body temperature. So our high level pro athletes are sweating even more than a more amateur or recreational athlete, to where their sodium needs and electrolyte needs are going to be through the roof. We also have, I would say, somebody who's new to exercise where you're sweating a
Yeah.
lot because your body's
Well,
trying to
yeah,
keep up. So I would say like the brand new to exercise and the pro athletes probably have the highest electrolyte
yeah,
needs and hydration needs.
yeah, just the pure amount of time that a pro, like, I was just reading on a friend's Instagram yesterday, she was, like, going through doing the 2016 thing. Now
Oh yeah.
she's a mom of 2 and runs a business, and all she does is run, but she was like, "Back then, I trained 35 hours a week." And it's just like, 35 hours, think
Wow.
about that, it's a
Yeah.
lot. If you're thinking about it 1,000 milligrams an hour, okay, so a lot to take on.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's where again I think these products are really helpful. Admittedly, I think early on in my career, and again, I'm going to kind of mention that some during my training, some sports nutrition guidelines kind of de-emphasized electrolytes.
Mhm,
Like I said earlier, like, wait, oh, you only need them in the recovery period. And I
yeah,
just really think that was not for endurance sports. And it just wasn't updated. I went through training many a years ago. I keep up with it now. So I know the
yeah.
current guidelines and everything. But oh, where was I going with that? My brain just
Just over drinking
disappeared.
water maybe and not having enough electrolytes.
Actually, the opposite. I was gonna say early in my career, I was always concerned about things like salt tablets of people overdoing the sodium.
Yep.
So I was wondering if you could touch on that quickly, like, because this is what's so frustrating is typically, like, the signs of dehydration are very similar to hyponatremia, and then, like, sometimes the signs of too much sodium are similar to,
Sure.
that as well. So, yeah, could you touch on our should athletes be concerned about too much sodium, or what might that look like?
I think that it's really unlikely, especially if you're so tuned in, like, that you're replenishing. I have rarely ever heard an athlete finish an event and be like, "Oh, I underfueled," or "I overfueled," or "I overhydrated." Like, it's normally the opposite. The one nice thing, and this goes with carbs too. I've seen this with carbs where you're onboarding the carbs and you maybe can't get the fluid in, and there becomes like some GI distress because you really do need your gut pulls fluids in
Yeah.
to help absorb the carbohydrates, where you can actually get kind of like if you start to get bloated and you feel like you're slamming carbs and or sodium, you start to get bloated and then you actually start to feel like you're cramping and something's starting to go off, like, you almost feel like, "Wait a minute, I'm not taking enough." That is a sign to start drinking water and water
Water.
only. And that's what's
Mhm.
really cool about overdoing it is that water can help fix that if you have access to water versus underdoing it. Once you start cramping, it's hard mentally to come back from that. It's hard physically to come back
Yeah.
from that. We have people
Yeah.
tell us all the time that they've been given fast chews out on a race course, and they're like, "What's are those magic? Like, what are in those things?" And it's just because of how quickly they work.
They feel that benefit right away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. What is sorry, just for comparison, having electrolytes be absorbed through your GI tract, what is that time period like? You mentioned the fast chews could be
Yeah.
absorbed within sodium absorbed within 45 seconds. What's
20
the
20 to
time
30
difference?
minutes, and
Oh,
oftentimes like, not everything is absorbed all the time. So but yeah, I mean, it's 20 to 30 minutes when you're cramping could feel like an
yeah.
eternity. Uh,
Oh
but if you're
gosh, yeah.
staying on top of it, if you have it dialed and you love taking the capsules because they have a higher number of electrolytes in them and you're staying
Yeah.
on top of it, great. But yeah, we
When again, I love the idea of using multiple products, or, like, maybe you have you carry the fast shoes with you as a just in case thing.
yeah,
Maybe the temperature got hotter than you expected it to be, and you feel like you're sweating more, and you're yeah, then you utilize those fast shoes even if you like the other products as your normal,
yeah.
thing, right? Yeah,
Like,
there's so
it
many
doesn't
different
have to
ways.
only be salt stick either. I use a lot of different products and I'm a big, big carb eater and I get my carbs through gels and the gummies.
And there's like you mentioned before, we can have electrolytes in our fuel choices as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Variety is
yeah,
important to prevent burnout. I think this isn't meant to be negative, but a lot of athletes are just kind of robots and it actually works better not to have variety and just to stick to what you know. But for some people, it's not as fun. And,
yeah,
like, having the variety and then, again, having the plan and practicing beforehand, like, what works. I know we hear that all the time,
yeah.
but it's actually incredibly valuable to learn. Even just figuring out things like opening things or where to store it or, like, if you're
Oh, yeah.
bike racing, you tell young riders that come in, like, "You need a trash pocket in your jersey." And,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you normally have your race radio in one pocket, so that's taken up. And so you learn where you store all your stuff. So left hand always gets gels, middle pocket always trash. So you're not like going into a climb, bumping elbows, like pulling out an empty
Mhm.
gel and being like, it's empty. Just even those
Yeah.
things are so important.
And I think even more important for the cycling because of the risk of crashing, that you wanna be efficient. When you're gonna take your hands off the handlebar, you wanna be really efficient at what you're grabbing and how long it takes to open something. Certainly, that's true in running as well, but maybe, the risk of falling, not the same. I mean, rowing, we've got endurance rowers that it's like we can't with the if
Really?
we take our hand off the oar, we're
Yeah.
losing speed here, right?
Right.
So you gotta be efficient there as well.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
nuances.
nuances that make it so fun. I'm the variety person for sure because it's something that mentally it's fun for me to look forward to. What's my next fuel
Yeah.
or drink or chew going to be or electrolyte? Like, and maybe that's just because I love food so much and I'm a dietitian, but it's like I look forward to what I'm gonna
What you're gonna
eat next,
yeah,
or what flavor or like, yeah.
yeah,
And I also think the variety between chewing, swallowing, slurping is important too. There's times when you want something solid and times when it's like, I need to focus on breathing and this needs to get down as
yeah,
easily as
yes,
possible. And I don't want to waste energy chewing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many things you just through practice, and I have no affiliation to the feed, but I think that website has made it so easy for, like, me personally. I go on and I order one of a gel or, like, their sample packs, and then I learn
Yeah.
I like, where before, when there wasn't, a website like that, you would have to commit to a whole box of products and then be like, "Well,
True.
that's not my favorite one."
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. Yeah. Being able to buy individual and test them out is really
Yeah.
nice. Well, Jess, this has been a very educational conversation. Thank you for the tips and like product awareness too. Really appreciate that. Where can we go to learn more about these products?
So at Salt Stick is our Instagram. We also have TikTok run by a group of people much younger than me. So it's trendy and really fun. And you can find me at Jess Cerra. And I can share with you a discount code for your listeners
That
where
would be
it's
great.
can share that so you can try our products with a discount. Uh,
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes and I might record myself as well after this with what that discount is to share with our listeners. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been fun.
Yeah, thank you. This was really fun. Thank you, Jess. Thanks so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed that episode. Please help spread the message of empowering female athletes to be fierce, fit, and fueled by giving this podcast a 5-star review and leaving a comment. You can also help more female athletes by sending this episode to a friend. Head to lindseycortes.com for more resources, information, more episodes, ways to work together, downloadable guides, and ebooks. And if you're interested in becoming a guest on the show or have a guest suggestion, head to lindseycortes.com/podcast, and there's a form for you to fill out to get on the show. Hey, there's more resources on my YouTube channel, Female Athlete Nutrition, Instagram at female.athlete.nutrition, and private Facebook group, Female Athlete Nutrition. I think you get the point. I'm here to support female athletes by fueling better and becoming fierce, fit, and fueled. Most importantly, if you need help, reach out. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next show.